The one thing that goes hand in hand with flat earthers is space deniers. In fact, if you're a flat earther, you are almost certainly a space denier. I can't even think of someone who thinks that space is fake and is not a flat earther. So today we're going to look at Taboo Conspiracy as he asks, who is the dumbest astronaut ever? Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. Right then, let's get on with today's video, which as I said earlier is from Taboo Conspiracy. He wants to talk to us about how dumb astronauts are apparently. Okay Taboo, I don't think he really knows what it takes to become an astronaut, does he? Take it away Taboo.
The question of who was the dumbest fraud astronaut of all time will be debated for generations among scholars.
By scholars, you mean people that believe space is fake and we didn't go to the moon, yes? Just wanted to make it clear that it won't be actual scholars.
Of course, all astronauts are liars. Astronauts can't even agree on whether stars are visible in space. I mean, who would actually look at the stars in space?
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars. The cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Okay, this one is constantly used by space deniers. This all depends on the situation at any time of viewing stars. If the astronaut is looking into space with a bright object nearby, such as the sun, the moon, or the Earth, the glare can overwhelm their vision and make it difficult for them to see stars. Much like being in a bright city here on Earth's surface when you're trying to look at stars. Also, if an astronaut is inside a well-lit spacecraft, their eyes may not adjust well enough to see stars out the window. However, when astronauts are far away from bright objects or on the night side of Earth during their orbit, the stars become incredibly clear and numerous. As I said, this all depends on the circumstances of viewing. So it's no wonder that different astronauts have different experiences.
Before we get to the top two, there are a couple other dishonorable mentions. These two astronauts simply forgot that they're supposed to be traveling at 17,500 miles per hour in the physically impossible vacuum of space.
And I played a lot of sports. And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
Yes, because the astronauts are talking to Houston from the ISS. That is what they mean here.
Houston is called Space City because NASA's Johnson Space Center is the home of human spaceflight. We design the missions, train the crews, and orchestrate the flights from right here in Houston. Houston was the first to receive words from the surface of the moon, and the next giant leap will also start right here in Houston.
Right here in Houston.
Right here in Houston. That's pretty funny.
Okay, this one looks like it's a bit harder to explain. But from the looks of this, the astronaut in question is reading a script. You can tell by the tempo and tone of the words he's speaking. And look at his eyes as well, clearly following a script. He's obviously read the script exactly how it's written, that is all.
But for me, the next two lying astronauts encapsulate both the fraud and stupidity of NASA and its phony astronauts. First, we have Michael Collins at the post-Apollo 11 flight press conference on August 12, 1969. Michael Collins is the guy on the right. What makes Michael so special was his answer to the simple question of what the stars look like from the lunar surface.
Something, of course, which Michael Collins shouldn't really know because he didn't go to the surface of the moon. But he still would have had a window in the command module and he was in orbit around the moon, remember?
I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may. When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk, did you find that the surface was equally firm anywhere, or were there harder and softer spots that you could detect? And secondly, when you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
Big up to Patrick Moore, by the way. This is a reasonable answer. On the moon, in direct sunlight, the glare of the sun reflecting off the moon's surface would be more than enough to cause issues when trying to view the stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were...
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were...
Poor Michael. Almost gave Neil a heart attack right there. Just look at Neil's face. I'd love to know what Neil said to him right there. Forgetting the script, Michael forgot that he actually never stepped onto the lunar surface, and so he shouldn't have even answered the question, and most certainly shouldn't have said he didn't remember seeing any stars. According to the official story, Michael was the pilot of the command module that was supposedly orbiting the moon at 3,600 miles per hour, and that's why Neil was so bothered by Michael's answer. Michael never went to the lunar surface.
Yes, but he'd still have the same issue regarding the glare off the moon's surface if he was on the day side of the moon whilst in orbit. Now, he may have seen the stars on the night side of his orbit, but he also may not have thought about that during his mission.
When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk...
Furthermore, Michael allegedly saw the dark side of the moon roughly 30 times. Michael would have had the best view of the stars far beyond any other person in history and would have had almost nothing to do but look at them. Yet he doesn't even remember seeing any stars.
I don't remember seeing any.
Even in the shadow of the moon, if Collins was not trying to explicitly look at stars, it's easy to see why he wouldn't see them. The brightness inside the command module, for one, causing glare and reflections on the window. And of course, he may have saw stars at some point, but just didn't remember. You got to remember, he was very busy maintaining the spacecraft and monitoring critical systems.
What's also interesting is the claim that Michael Collins was stuck in that cramped module for over 8 days. But I guess Ronald Evans from Apollo 17 supposedly beat Collins by being in that cramped module for an impossible 12 days and 13 hours. Could you imagine that?
Well, the seats could be folded and adjusted to optimise for space, but yeah, it was cramped. The astronauts knew this, no, they signed up for that.
But astronaut Donald Pettit has been trying to outdo Michael's classic stupidity for some time now. According to the official narrative, Donald is a genius and even invented the coffee cup in space. You can find the original NASA video here. You know, Michael invented that coffee cup that can also impossibly separate from the color of its contents. But I guess that CGI glitch wasn't really Donald's fault.
Really? Picking on a 16-year-old video with low resolution and compression artifacts, but not using the several clips of the zero-G coffee cup in high definition. Why would you do this, Taboo?
I'm just going to stick to just 2 examples that really showcase what a genius Donald is. For our first video, we have the dumbest excuse ever as to why it has been over 50 years since man was last on the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Before Taboo jumps in here, Don is talking here about the Saturn V rocket. NASA did not have a launch vehicle for years, and if you discount the space shuttle, for decades. That is what he meant here, the technology to launch.
Seriously, is there any person, even among the globe propagandists, who believe this utter nonsense?
But we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
What are you going to say, that I took poor Donald out of context?
Yes, I am.
That was a great quote from Donald, but this next one is my favorite. Sometimes I wish we could go back and watch something like this again for the first time, because I remember laughing so hard when I first saw this. Watching Donald here is like watching a deer in the headlights. He has absolutely no clue how to answer this simple question. Is it any more obvious that none of these astronauts go through any actual training for space? Just watch this.
What happens if you get a leak on that?
Then you have a leak.
You just have a leak.
And what you would do is...
You lose air.
Yeah, you would probably seal the whole cupola off. And then there's probably a plan, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's probably a plan for replacing the mechanism might require a spacewalk.
Now, we've looked at this before, and this actually has happened on the ISS. If the leak is small, say millimetre size, it could take anywhere from hours to days to totally depressurise the ISS. Plenty of time to deal with the situation.
So my question is, how can you operate a lid on the outside of the space station by manipulating something mechanical on the inside of the space station without losing air pressure?
It's called real good engineering. Then you have a leak.
Then you have a leak. Do you think a sailor on a submarine would know what to do in case of a leak? Just watch these submariners training.
Ridiculous comparison. The obvious difference here is that the pressure differential is not only greater in the submarine water system than a spaceship system, but also the pressure is greater on the outside of a submarine, but in a spaceship the pressure is greater on the inside. A small millimetre size hole on a submarine would be much more catastrophic. Look, I've had enough of Taboo's blatant misunderstandings here. What I can say for sure is that every single one of those astronauts you featured, Taboo, is cleverer than you, my friend. Well, there we go, everyone. What do we think of Taboo Conspiracy's hit piece on NASA astronauts there? Let me know in the comments below. As I say, we're all done and dusted for another Tinfoil Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching today. It is, as always, appreciated. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the thumbs up button as well, and even sharing if the feeling takes you. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a cracking few days, and I'll see you on Friday for the return of Anthony Bear, who's going to tell us that a beach is flat. See you then.